everyone, and welcome to Designing Workplace Welfare. How is everyone doing? We hope everyone is safe wherever you are watching from. Thank you for joining Paperspace Philippines' first installment of the Knowledge series this year, Designing Workplace Welfare. We hope you'll find today's discussions insightful. So you can share what you've learned today by posting on Facebook or Instagram. You just make sure to use the hashtags #PaperspaceAsia and Designing Workplace Welfare and stand a chance to win prizes from Dragon's Nest and KMC Solutions. Should you have any questions regarding any of our topics today, you can send them down via chat or via the Q&A button below to moderate our event today. Let's welcome Paperspace Philippines Country Head, IDR Karen Kalalek.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. And thanks, Noah. Once again, welcome to our Paperspace Philippines event this afternoon. And of course, for those here in the Philippines, hoping everyone are safe at home. We were lucky enough to finish designing workplace culture last February 2020 at CWC Interiors in BGC. And this was just before the lockdowns were imposed here in Metro Manila. So for those who don't know us yet, Paperspace is a collective of experienced strategists, designers, and change advocates based in Singapore, Thailand, India, and the Philippines. We work with leaders and employees to understand physical, behavior, and culture change required to transition into new ways of working. And of course, this to define opportunities to empower business performance of the future and create impactful spaces for people. We at Paperspace Asia believe in sharing our learnings and insights through our Knowledge Series events, and we're privileged to continue this year. The previous year, we saw how and various businesses were hit by the pandemic. Those who could were forced to shift to work at home setup. So now, a year later, we are seeing vaccines being rolled out worldwide. And in some countries even, they have actually 75% of their workforce are already back in office. But moving forward, how do we see our future work life in a post-pandemic Philippines? Interesting, right? So right after all of our speakers' discussions and presentations, we'll have a question and answer segment. And you can send all of your questions via the Q&A feature here on Zoom or send via chat. So without further ado, let's meet our three speakers for today. In a bit, she'll discuss her approach in designing workplaces in a time of change. We have the co-founder and director of Paperspace Singapore, Narita, Cheah. And bringing it back to the Philippines, we learned from Tracy Ignacio, the COO of KMC Solutions, Inc., how the Philippine market shifted and how businesses have pivoted accordingly. And last but not least, sharing with us his work on ready-made hybrid solutions, co-founder and director of Paperspace Thailand, Sombat Ngamchalermsak. So on to our first speaker of the day, with over 16 years of directing experience under her belt, coming from consultancy and design and build firms, she specializes in workplace strategic planning and change management. During the height of the lockdown last year, she was spearheading Paperspace Asia's workplace adaptation research in seeing how the workplace can move forward despite the outbreak of the pandemic. Joining us from Singapore this afternoon to share with us insights from workplace adaptation and the ongoing Singapore exhibition entitled The Office Disrupted, co-founder of Paperspace Asia, let's all please welcome Ms. Narita Cheah.
Hi there, good afternoon from Singapore to everyone in the Philippines. We're very excited to be part of the conversation as a region. I think we're all going through similar experiences at different time zones in the last 15 months. So again, very excited to be here today. Thank you for the opportunity. And before we start, really wanted to say that, it's always been, I've personally, have been spending a lot of time in Manila in a pre-pandemic environment and always enjoyed just kind of enjoying all the food and the hospitality every time I'm there, and looking forward to the time that I can get on that plane and be back in Manila again. So hope you're all keeping safe despite all that's going on over there. So just to start off with, where we've been as a business, I think with everyone else who's a business owner or part of a business, I think the last year has pivoted us or thrown us into a great unknown. And certainly we had a choice, and we decided to embark then on a very detailed research approach on trying to understand the future state of what the new Agile looks like. I think Agile has been around for a while. We've known them from the tech firms and how they work in deploying new products. And perhaps in looking forward of what Agile means for us, I think it's going to be looking across businesses, adapting to new opportunities, looking at their processes. I think Agile is going to be about employees, again, shifting and adapting to change as the businesses are also, again, finding their feet. And last but not least, we then circle back into then what the space from a context of the office then means for us in the future. I think Agile would really be about what adapting in adversity looks like. And this sort of gives you a broad timeline across what we were up to as a firm in the past sort of 12 to 15 months. 2019 was all set and poised for growth. We're very excited. We're like, okay, we're going to be growing again. And then came March, and then the world changed for all of us. But like all human beings, I think we all learn to adapt. There might be a lot of uncertainty, but like all human beings, we move forward and say, let's start a research since we have time. We've always wanted to do it, so let's go ahead with it. And when we approached the research project, I think we were very fortunate and thankful for all the clients that came forward with us in the research process across the region, Philippines, Thailand, Singapore, and India, different sectors, about 500 plus employees in total, over 40 leaders that came and participated in the research to then help us realize and identify that hybrid working would be a staple in the future. With all that's good and great, we know what the future looks like. It's a lot about a different way of working. Now that remote working is now proven as possible, and actually in some cases more productive. We have then also embarked on an exhibition here in Singapore, which I'll share a little bit more in a while. But this year is, I think, an opportunity for us to start to, after hearing all the research and the information that we think what the future looks like, it's really time for us to now put theory to practice, to deploy perhaps different pilots, getting people to get feedback, and really kind of rotate that as iterative solutions from this year for the next 5 years, really to really understand and really get our arms around what hybrid office looks like from a people, space, technology, and culture perspective. And I just wanted to show you, obviously, in the next slide, what the research also revealed back in June last year. And interestingly enough, these stats have remained consistent pretty much 9 months to today. A lot of the stats still remain consistent. So first and foremost, when we were asking what was the most important thing for employees when returning to the office, flexibility ranked highest of all the other sort of concerns. There were concerns around safety, commute to work, time, but really it was about flexibility that the overarching voice of the region sort of said that was what they wanted in returning to the office. Secondly, even back in June, 97% of the overall employees across region could already recognize being 3 months in remote environments, still could see that the office was still going to be a crucial point for people to come together, to have those human connections, to build relationships, and to have, what we're used to, which is just the camaraderie of people coming together. The third stat, which I'm sure we've all experienced in our own time and space, is that perhaps, working remotely, we've actually seen an incline of productivity in high focus work areas. People actually said that they could concentrate a lot better without the distractions in the office when it came to individual tasks. And last but not least, I hope you have all addressed the last point, which scored the lowest, which was recognizing that the ergonomic settings at home were not ideal. People were facing a lot of health issues around that, and a lot of companies have stepped in to make sure that they provided the right tools to support employees remotely. So apart from the surveys that we've conducted, in the next slide, you see that we've also then conducted focus groups, a very different method of conducting focus group with a technology company late last year to help them talk about, in what their day, their life looks like, and when returning to the office, what sort of environment would they want to come back to and feel that they need. We also asked the questions about what would then they would do actually remotely, and across the board with all these focus groups, whether they were in sales or in HR, what was consistent was everyone said that in a cave environment where I do individual task work, I can do that remotely. So it starts a question then, when we come back to work, will we want to sit at the desk and kind of, struggle with the reports that we're far better off doing it from home? So something to think about really when we're thinking about and rotating back to the office space. And then the next slide, obviously, there's a lot of questions around, so what does this mean? How do we chart the future workplace? It's very obvious. We've heard from large organizations, from their board, space reduction is an overall goal. A lot of firms are taking globally as a stance now, but recognizing that the office is here to stay, it supports the need of the organization, but it's up to organizations to decide what that need is going to be. What are you going to use the office space for? Is it to represent your brand? Is it about bringing people together? Because I think going back to the past of being a purely functional environment is unlikely to kind of go back there. So there's a lot of questions, obviously, in terms of reproportioning the portfolio between focus, collaboration, or perhaps even social environments. So where do we start? And this really comes back to a lot of processes that Sombat will share a little bit later. But in the next slide, this is an opportunity then that when we put in front of Design Singapore Council, our overarching design body here in Singapore, they were incredibly excited about what the future holds, especially for us, where we see the economies opening up. And we are very proud to have launched this exhibition last Thursday. We had 50 people come together with, safety protocols in place. And the goal was really to uncover the story and the possibility of the future as a whole. Once upon a time, it was a very top-down decision. What we're seeing now is we're going to have to use a common safe space to have top-down discussions, bottom-up conversations, and sort of meet in between. For everyone else who's in the Philippines, we'll be sharing a lot more about the exhibition, giving you a lot more videos and snippets of the story behind how this came about, the collaboration and the partnership that's made it possible over our social media channels, so tune in. But to give you a little bit of lens of what to expect, we're just going to play this short video in the next slide.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
I'm terrified to speak.
I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody.
I hope you enjoyed that little video, and I do believe that in perhaps in our new world, it gives us all the opportunities to be more connected with all that's going on here and across our region, in support of I think charting the new future. We want to welcome everyone who's on this call to be part of the conversations that's going to really sort of start to kick off one tomorrow. That's around hearing from different organizations from aviation, retail about how they transform their business in a time where we've had to. And then the second conversation is then about, well, when business pivot, then how do we then engage employees in a time where culture and change is all happening? The third, which is I think a very close topic to my heart, is about the past and the future office. And last but not least, then in the past or the future office, how will it then impact strategies around urban planning, cityscapes, and property development of the future? So I welcome all of you to be part of this event. We have invested in making them hybrid events, so you get to see the panel speakers come together in a physical environment and to be part, hopefully, as our audience that's both live in our auditorium as well as online. So thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you there.
Thanks so much, Narita, for sharing. And, we have a lot to look forward to in terms of future of workplaces. And of course, the exhibition looks really, really interesting. And we just wish we could be there to visit. Just a reminder to everyone, make sure to send all of your questions for Narita, Tracy, and Sombat via chat or via the Q&A button below. Okay, so also, we're giving away prizes courtesy of Dragon's Nest and KMC Solutions. Just share what you've learned today on a post on Facebook or Instagram. Make sure to use the hashtags Paperspace Asia and Designing Workplace Welfare. On to our next speaker. She brings with her 18 years of professional experience, 7 years of public accounting both here and abroad at PricewaterhouseCoopers Philippines and BDO Seaman in California, USA. After joining KMC Solutions as the finance director 7 years ago, Tracy Ignacio continued her rapid career trajectory and became the VP of Finance. And now, currently the Chief Operating Officer of KMC Solutions, the country's largest flexible workspace and staff leasing provider. So over those years, she led the team to build over 80,000 square meters of office space across the major business districts in the Philippines. We are grateful to have her join us in today's event. Let's all welcome Ms. Tracy Ignacio.
Hi, Karen. Thank you so much for that kind introduction and for Paperspace for this invitation. Definitely humbled to be among the best designers from your team and speaking here. Well, and really glad that we're here together to do some knowledge sharing. Allow me to have a very brief discussion about modern office perspectives here in our country. Well, based on our research and more importantly, based on our own experience here in KMC. So yes, I'm currently the COO of KMC Solutions. Out of my 18 years of working, 13 years were spent as an accountant. Definitely different from what I'm doing right now. Less numbers, more action for sure, but definitely as challenging. So let me talk about KMC quickly. No, if I have to describe the company in 2 words, I would say we are growth enablers because basically we provide various business solutions from engaging office workspaces to HR and payroll services for companies of different sizes, from a 1-seater to a 1,000-seater. So basically, helping them in their growth plans. In fact, as you can see in our next slide, this is the data as of last week where it lists down our current footprint and where we are right now and the services that we offer. We were recently hailed by Inquirer, a newspaper publication here in the Philippines, as a growth champion for support services. I guess this is in line with the growth that we did over the past year through the pandemic as well. So right now we are in 24 different locations, over 80,000 square meters of office space. When I started with KMC, it was below 1,000. So you were right about we were at the forefront of building those 80,000 square meters of office space. for the company. And right now, our grew team rapidly to now 2,400, almost 2,500 individuals, 400 of which are supporting our clients in various departments, while 2,000 are actually deployed in the operations of our clients, much more of a BPO setup. So in the company here in KMC, we offer employment engagement, payroll administration, and a full suite of support team for our clients. So before I start with the actual topic, allow me to give you a brief background of what we foresee or what our outlook is for real estate here in the Philippines. So we're currently at less than 60% occupancy right now, and that is definitely relatively low. This is because through the past 3 years, starting off with 2019, which was a very, very good year for real estate and offices, wherein there was only less than 5% vacancy across Metro Manila. So this is coming from the Collier's quarterly property market report, and the rental rates were above 1,000 per square meter. Now moving on to 2020, the vacancy increased to 9%, and with the average rent to be lower as well. Just the usual law of supply and demand, right? And now come 2021, with even more vacancy of 12.5% and a decrease in the average rental rate across Metro Manila of 15%, down to around 700 pesos per square meter. So this is because a lot of office buildings that started construction years ago are now live, but unfortunately the take up hasn't been the same behavior as in the past, and we all know why that is. So moving on to the next slide, which is basically the meat of my discussion for today. We're going to be talking about the real estate trends, the shift in office space demand. So this list is really based on our experience and what we've noticed in the market right now. As Narita mentioned, there's definitely changes in the space designs given the demands of the current world. Definitely, the designs are more people centric, and here in the Philippines, we are forced to definitely adhere to the various rules of IATF, as well as the Department of Labor and our own health and safety protocols, definitely. And then next is we also see that clients right now that never used to open themselves up to a flexible workspace idea are now exploring this. So we see traditional office takers, the ones that really lease long term from a direct landlord, and then they build it themselves. They're looking at since they're not using those spaces, mostly are working from home. They are not renewing, and also if they are to renew, they're only willing to renew for a short time because right now everybody's really on a wait and see, right? So short-term leases are better for them rather than the traditional long-term ones. And next, the more interesting one is really the rise of remote work. So in the past year as well, we've had a really, really high demand for virtual office because, again, as traditional office workspaces were let go, they still need to file for their usual government permits and all, thus the need for a virtual office. And apart from that, it gave rise to a lot of challenges for people working from home as well. I mean, just the lack of space, the privacy, and as well as the lack of human interaction, which significantly affects the culture of belonging, collaboration, the innovation. So basically, at the end of the day, people still want to have those interactions. We found out that through the surveys of various companies, including Colliers, that there's also a group. I mean, people are still looking forward to a more collaborative workforce or an office. So at the end of the day, it's really not just work from home or work from the office, but we foresee a hybrid type of a setup wherein partly people will be working from home and partly in the office. So a very important statement to actually bear in mind is that the work from home setup is ultimately a supplement, but not a substitute for the office. So next to our point here is the demand for multiple office locations. So basically, we know how challenging it is, the transportation situation here in the Philippines, pre, post, and during the pandemic. It's a challenge for everybody. So that's why the value of actually working in an office near home is important right now. The proximity between where you live and where you work. So we see a lot of companies implementing a distributed workforce strategy, even prior to the pandemic. I mean, it's not new to the Philippines to have disasters like floods or super typhoons, right? So business continuity plans are there, but with these big corporates. Now, not just big corporates are welcoming this kind of BCP planning and distributed workforce. It's really most, even small, medium-sized companies are doing so, because this pandemic has brought a lot of challenges, and along with it, when an outbreak comes in an office, of course they have to shut down the office and need an alternative workplace. So thus the rise of the demand for multiple office locations. And then lastly, on this slide, I'd like to point out that, we're very optimistic in terms of projecting recovery in office space take up in 2022. Of course, this is not founded, but I'm pretty sure this is quite optimistic, I admit. But there are still, hopes for different industries are as well, because even during the pandemic, there was still take up of office space specific to certain industries like BPOs. Definitely BPOs, always an industry we relied on as an economy. Healthcare has been rising as well. E-commerce, I'm pretty sure everyone on this call has been guilty of spending too much time in Lazada or Shopee. Fintech is another rising industry. Telco has always been there, and of course, logistics, given all these online shopping and e-commerce. So basically, at the end of the day, we know that the pace of the recovery is likely hinged on the progress of the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccines, like the rest of our lives, right? So that's basically all for this slide on the shift in the office demands. So just quickly on the next few slides, I'd like to just talk about, the how we were able to reduce the operational risk of some of our clients by using our KMC footprint. So as of the moment, we are in 24 different locations, some of which are actually outside the major CBDs of Metro Manila. When I say major CBDs, these are Makati, BGC, and Ortigas. So basically, we also have sites in Clark, Quezon City, Alabang, and Mandaluyong. So for those, some of our clients opted to do a distributed workforce, wherein some people will be working from the headquarters and others will be working in the nearest location where they are. So in the next slide, we would like to call this kind of solution that we offer as Triple H. So you can choose from working from home, from a hub and spoke or a near home setup, or from the headquarters. So basically, this is how we pivoted as a company during this very challenging times. No, so our typical setup where in-service offices are offered in the CBDs in our headquarters, or a distributed workforce in a hub and spoke setup. And lastly, KMC Casa, which is a work from home setup. Like we went as far as setting up office spaces inside the homes of our clients. Like we would bring chairs and tables in their houses and also set their internet service through our partners with PLDT and Converge as well. So definitely really being very flexible to the needs of the times and our clients. So, and then also the other change that we did for this during this time is that in our most recent build on the next slide, which is called Armstrong, a new building in Makati, our most recent new office, we had to hire like a third party sort of an auditor, but basically it's a software company that analyzes floor plans for operation efficiency and well-being. This is a company founded by guys from Harvard and MIT, specializing in design and wellness in terms of making sure that our floor layout are actually designed to allow just the right amount of foot traffic and the right density. So basically, it's as simple as uploading a floor plan, the software analyzes it, and then an evaluation and scorecards are given afterwards. So they're called spatial metrics, and we're very happy that it was validated that our design for that particular building was aligned in CDC requirements as well. So lastly, in closing, I just wanted to share a very like few of the changes we implemented in our offices in various locations as a response to the threats brought about by the pandemic. So basically, here we are like all learning together, executives and the like, learning about how to become engineers and make sure ventilation is correct within the offices and know about the symptoms of this virus. So basically, we invested a lot in hospital grade sanitation as well as UV lights across all of our sites to ensure that people are people that are coming in the office are safe and secure, definitely. So if I have to part with just like some 2 cents on for everyone who's currently reporting in the office or going about their businesses somewhere, I would just suggest that you never eat. Number one, you never eat with other people. Eat by yourself. And number two, just meet virtually, like what we're doing right now. A very effective way of of discussing while we await for the things for the dust to settle right now. So again, Karen, thank you so much for the invitation and Paperspace, and I hope I was able to give you an idea into and would be happy later to answer just the easy questions. Bye.
Thank you so much, Tracy.
Mhm.
Definitely, the information that you have shared are eye-opening, specifically about the percentages of the businesses that are shifting, the effects of these in our real estate, and in general, all about our local market at this time. Thank you so much. See you again later for the Q&A. So we have our final speaker who had completed his degree in KMITL in Bangkok and started his design career in Singapore. Prior to Paperspace, he has worked with notable companies such as Google, Facebook, and Airbnb, just to name a few. As one of the co-founders of Paperspace Asia, he now heads the Bangkok office as their director. And during the lockdown last year, he was able to work on projects which actually helped him determine key features of the hybrid office setup. So all the way from Bangkok, Thailand, to share with us Paperspace Asia's ready-made hybrid office solutions that he's currently developing, let's all welcome Mr. Sombat Ngamchalermsak.
Thank you, Karen. It's my pleasure to be here today. And similar to Narita, I mean, we've been missing, the vibrance of Manila cities because I've been there quite a few times as well. So, I mean, to start this conversation, right? 20 years back, I kind of fly all the way from Bangkok to Singapore to work as a designer, and it happened that there's a few offers during that time, and I just take one offer just because the office is looking good. That's it. And it happened that that office, I mean, that company is specialized in office design. So 20 years back, I've been doing hundreds of offices, including Facebook, Google, Airbnb, Walt Disney. So I kind of see the pattern of those companies from the past few decades to now. And I think the really important question that the client asked recently is how the office gonna look like in future with this pandemic factor. I think is to in order to predict the future, I think the best way is to look at the past and then try to understand why we have to sit in this thing called the office. So we start with the the first industrial revolution happened in 1760. Before that, actually, people do work from home or from their farm, and they're being called to be in the factory either to work at the same time in order to produce a very mass product to the market. And next, when there's someone trying to mapping that pattern in the factory into the place, which is the very beginning era of the office. It's called terrace office. So they kind of try to understand the pattern and adopting into the white collar workforce. And then next is in Germany in 1960, they realized that actually the work is being more complicated. You have to work with a few dedicated co-workers in your own department because you are like maybe you are marketing or you are administrative, and those is formed up to be kind of like a department zoning as you see in the bubbles, and then it's like developed into the next era where next Herman Miller's the most well-known furniture manufacturing came out with the concept of the action office. The initial idea of the action office is to find a best solution for people to work, and is very well designed in terms of economic and the way it used. But unfortunately, the market could adopt this because it's just too costly for the company to use this, and so they have to go back to drawing board and came out with version 2 of the action office, which sadly developed to be a next slide, what we call a cubicle. So this cubicle farm is kind of like a nightmare for the workers for the few decades, because on one hand, from the organization point of view, they're so happy with this because first it's very cheap to adopt this concept throughout the office, and the staff is just come here sitting in the cubicle, sitting on the monitors from 9 to 6, and they don't have chance to do anything else. So the productivity level is increasing a lot during this era. But on the other hand, people feel exhausted with this because it's just like all the work. They don't have chance to communicate with the coworkers or even having a leisure during the office hour. And people do realize that actually this is not working anymore in the future. So in early 2000, next slide, there's this like innovative company in the world, starting from Google, Facebook. They had the different point of view of how the office look like, and it's kind of developed to be the term what we call activity-based workplace, or ABW. The fundamental of this ABW is there's a multiple tasks or activities happen in the office, not just on the desk. And the best office is the office that could address those multiple activities. So it's starting from the workstation all the way to meeting rooms, brainstorming area, town hall, or even the pleasure area, like the games room or the sleeping pods, where so we've been very fortunate to use this concept for at least like 2 decades. So recently with Paperspace, we have done a few projects for like Facebook and Google with like the way you see in the slide. And whatever we enjoy for the past few decades, right, it's been kind of hit very hard by COVID-19. Next slide. So as you know that when it hit to our work, we being like asked to work from home since then. And for some countries like Manila or Philippines, you still carry on that work from home mode. And that actually is not really working for everyone. Someone has a limitation of working from home in a few like factors, like the space, the privacy level, or the infrastructure, which is not very like productive at home. And there's a question happening last year of, do we really need the office in the future? Is the office will be like gone because we can work from home? But if you follow the Narita and Tracy's like talking in the early stage, people do still need a place to meet a real human. And we know that actually some of the tasks couldn't do it virtually, even though we love to do like, ideation, innovation, brainstorming. The virtual call couldn't address that issue. So that's why it's kind of like people are asking what will be the next era of the office, which is the next slide. So imagine this is where the traditional office is set up. So this is the HQ. All the activities, functions within your organization is kind of like, put into one single building. And in last year, the whole year, this office is not being used because you are working from home and you struggle. And the next kind of like mode of the office is the next slide. So this is kind of like the illustrate of the hybrid office in a simple way. So you can see that the headquarter is being reduced because you know that actually some tasks you can work from home, especially the kind of the focus tasks. But there's other tasks that you couldn't work from home. That's the tasks or activities that you should have in the office in the future, but not all the tasks. And we are talking about the concept of satellite office, where if you have spread out your office in a multiple location, so your staff who are not living in the CBD can access to that office without commuting too long, which is risk for the health as well. And there will be co-working space, service office, cafe, public space. Those are multiple, like anywhere else that you can work in combination of the office. So if I'm gonna wrap up what the hybrid office is the combination of all together, and is the era that the employee has choice to pick the components that work best for their life. And we know that actually we start this concept with multiple clients in Bangkok since last year, and the client that come to us come in two spectrum. One is the business that being disrupted by the pandemic. They almost collapse, so they have to find a way to maintain their fixed costs. So instead of spending millions for the big HQ, they want to reduce to a minimum space that still can survive during the pandemic. On the other hand, the client that has a benefit with this COVID, especially the e-commerce or the education technologies company, they are expanding drastically with the situation. And because of that, the existing space seems to be not enough anymore because they are like expanding too fast. So they have to find a way to maintain the existing space with the increasing of the staff. So this hybrid office like concept work very well with both spectrum. And lately this year, among the management team, we found actually not only the client in our 4 countries office that need the hybrid office solution. There's a lot of company in the world also looking for this solution. And in order to serve that wide range of the client, we study how do we work, how do we design the office. Next slide. We realized that actually to design one single office, it is consume a lot of process and time, no matter how big or small is the office. And in order to offer this solution to a bigger range of clients, we need to streamline this process. That's why we decided to launch the new business unit in Paperspace is called Papersprint. Next slide. So Papersprint is the concept of the software that allow the customers to develop their own hybrid office solutions. We are in the development process of this, but I can give you a glimpse of how it look like in next slide. So in the beta version, what we imagine is this software where you just use your mobile phones to log in, and there's tools for you to answer few surveys, which is click. Yep, and it will be a simple survey for you to answer, and it's generating the result of what office type are you. Click this. So we call this a diagnostic function. The benefit is if you are in considering transforming your office to a hybrid office, at least you know that your character of space that you need, it fall into this category, because there's no one size fit all. In the past, right, we have a simple metric of one person require 8 to 10 square meters space. If you have 100 staff, you just multiply that, and then that is the office space that you need. But in the future, that metric doesn't work anymore, because you might have 50% of your remote work somewhere else, or you might not need any desk in your office because you are on heavily on remote function, but you need office for the town hall or for the training. So that kind of factor is kind of something that we are working on throughout the year, and we believe that this is going to be a change in this industry. Thank you very much, Karen.
Thank you, Sombat. So it's definitely interesting to learn all about the evolution of workplace, especially for us who are in this core business. But it is also understandable that we are now more than ever focused on how the workplace can support its staff by understanding what our needs are individually as leaders or as employees, and also as an organization. So now we've heard from all of our speakers. It's now time to hear from our viewers. We've browsed through the questions, and of course, we can't get through all of them, but we can get started. So if you have any more questions, please send through. So let's start. So for Narita, let's start off with you. In relation to cost-related concerns, what would you say is the most important aspect that organizations need to consider first in building their hybrid office?
I think that's a very good question, and that's the question that all the clients who are coming to Singapore are asking. I think we all know that real estate is the second highest cost after human resource cost, and certainly I think we are hearing an overarching drive naturally to reduce real estate in the next 5 to 10 years. I think it's a simple math. If hybrid working is here to stay, we are looking at ratios of thereabout 60-40 on average, 60 being in the office, 60% being in the office, 40% being from home. And so if we had an office that accommodated 100 people in the past, naturally we'll need to consider on average, if only 60% were there, how will we then right-size the space? So that's one aspect from an overall sort of real estate perspective. From a sort of space consideration, I think my first advice to them would be, rather than to think, let's do something completely new. I don't think that we are an economic climate to be spending that kind of resources. I think our advice would be to take two approaches on space. Look at the current space that you have, and there are very clear white elephants that sit around office spaces that are not being utilized. Use those opportunities to engage with your employees to say, how might we activate these spaces for what people need? we are seeing a lot more need for phygital environments. That means that when two or three people are in a conversation and there's like a third person who then needs to plug into the call, what's the best way to do that? I think this is where technology and space needs to support that. So that's one aspect. The other one would be around doing a bit of a mini pilot, do something on a smaller scale, get different teams to experience it, critique, really believe, think through what you're going to be doing before rolling out at a much larger scale. Thank you.
Thanks so much. That clarifies a whole lot of things. Especially if we don't know where to start, right? So it of course cost is always a driving factor for most organizations. So now we go to Sombat because I don't know if a lot of people know here, but you've started a co-working space business before anyone has started here in Asia. So having paperwork as part of the Paperspace concept, what do you think does co-working spaces or any other spaces play, or how important is it, especially now that we haven't seen this trend that's going to be happening, right? It's so unforeseen.
Yep. So I think if refer back to the slide that I show, right? I think the scenario or landscape of the way we work in the future is not fall into one single location anymore. It's going to spread out to a multiple aspect, and the HQ is playing their own roles with a few tasks, and the co-working space itself is playing one of the function of that, because if you are the owner of the company, and instead of you building your own multiple office is going to cost you millions, but if you build a minimum office space that you need, and you partner or you use the co-working space as your extend arm, park your remote workers over there, they can go there via subscription model, and you know that the capital cost is going to transform into operation cost, which is a lot. And I think that's one part. And I think the other part is the organization itself is going to transform themselves into a co-working mode as well. What I mean by that is they know that actually they don't need to put everyone into the office anymore. So the office itself is gonna be very flexible, where those workers is coming to the office in a shift or what they need, which is similar to the co-working operation, but it's for their own staff, not to outsider. So the co-working still play a big role for the future office, from my point of view.
Right. Thanks so much for that. So it just goes to show that even employees right now actually have a choice, and they could put this forward to their leaders, I suppose, which to make them understand like which one would be the most effective for a person to be, of course, as productive as we could be, right? And of course, the whole event today is all about well-being. It's about the welfare of the workplace, right? So it's just amazing to see and hear from Tracy that they have used an external auditor. So like auditor in this sense would be the is it an app or a program, right, that you have used? So I suppose in our market, it could also be like workplace strategists or workplace professionals, I suppose. Why do you think, Tracy, is it important to get a third party look into the workspace plans, especially in how we need to deal with the workplace of the future for each organization?
Hi, Karen. Yeah. So basically, I mean, I do agree with everything that Sombat just mentioned also about, the need for the co-working spaces and what the behavior will be in the future. But as to answer for for me to answer your question, I believe this is my slide about spatial metrics. So yes, you are right that they are a software company. And although us as KMC, that we have tons of experience in building offices, over 80,000 square meter at that in the past 5 years, we're still treading right now on uncharted waters in this pandemic. We have to agree that we're all learning as we go right now, and we wanted to ensure, that experts that gave sound advice to a lot of other clients as well, validates our assumptions, just to be sure that we are designing the right way as well. And happy to say that we were able to pass that. So and we continue to always keep ourselves updated with all these requirements. Actually, in fact, if you would allow me, can I answer one of the questions that are posted in the Q&A list, because it's very related. So the question reads like, the Department of Labor and Employment guidelines on ventilation issued last month effectively placed a cap on occupancy density, just 5 persons per 90 square meters. So effectively, it's like 18 square meter to one person, right? Have your offices and clients start reducing capacities to comply with this requirement. So basically, the DOLE order, the DO 224, I believe, was released last March 3, 2021. We are currently analyzing all our layouts, but as we speak right now, fortunately and unfortunately, the foot traffic inside, the actual foot traffic inside our office spaces right now, I would tell you, decreased rapidly when ECQ was announced around March as well, to less than 10%. So yes, so basically prior to that, it was actually in a trajectory, like in a steady upwards trend, going up to 20 already, and then this surge happened, right? So naturally speaking, yes, we are more than compliant as to this requirement, unfortunately. Previously as well, our designs are all aligned with, more often than not, aligned with PESA, which is 5 square meter per seat normally. But even ahead of that, our common areas, our co-working areas are all very generous. And aside from ensuring, that social distancing, we've invested a lot on measuring air quality. So we have devices on site. We call it, it's the brand is Yuhu. It really detects the air quality, and we measure it daily, and we see, are the fresh air vents working, are these expensive air purifiers working. So really, I mean, we were forced as a business to invest a lot, but we know that these investments are all very, very useful, because it doesn't do anything but really secure and ensure the safety of our members, which is the most important right now for us.
Right. Thank you. It's just, we can't help but notice that, a lot of people are a lot of businesses, including ours, are very affected, of course. So let's hope, the vaccines will go about quickly. Again, we go back, and this goes out to everyone, all of our speakers. The question is, what should organizations consider when transforming into a hybrid office, and why? So maybe you could just give like a couple of top reasons that you can think of.
I'll maybe give it a go first. I think here we are hearing a lot of companies wanting to do it, and there are different ways of approaching it. And I'll maybe share what some organizations are doing versus what we think would be the right approach. I think obviously with large population of occupants, organizations have started to draft categories of people, and based on their job type, to decide, how much time they actually need to be in a physical office from a task perspective as well as an overall policy, so that there is a constant consistency of people being in the same environment. So they've kind of determined for certain groups how much time is expected of them in the office to do more of a space occupancy calibration. So that's, I would say, the step one to think about. Step two, I think some organizations have been a lot more forward in terms of looking at what compensation they are also giving out in order to support some of these options that employees choose to take up. These are obviously conversations that have to be done at a team level, not just at the individual level. And coming in, obviously, we feel that the third level, and probably the most important one, is to actually have conversations to help teams realize or identify of their days and the activities that they do in a day. Probably what do they spend the most time doing? And maybe the second question would be, what is the most important thing they should be doing? I don't think that second question is a very well asked question. We are all busy. We're all, chasing after yesterday's deadline. But maybe the more important question is what you should be doing more of, so that maybe your day could be more productive. Is it more of, I don't know, taking breaks? Is it more of connecting with your colleagues so you're better off and in a better place to be on the same page when you're trying to deal with issues? And only unless we get to that depth of conversation, then there's a realization for saying, okay, then I think I need to do these kinds of activities in the office with my team physically. I think that's a very missing conversation still in getting teams to recognize there's a certain protocol now for certain kinds of meeting that we are expected to be in the physical environment together. Because the default we have seen in the 50-50 split environment here is that 50% go back for numbers' sake, but they're all sitting at their desk with the headphones on, talking to 8 other people who are not there. And the noise and the distraction and the frustration is probably far worse off going back to the office than before or being from home. So hybrid is not just about numbers. It's about identifying new behaviors and educating people to build policies and expectations amongst themselves. So there's a common way of knowing when not to hit that Zoom button because it's all too convenient.
Does anybody else want to answer?
I can add on from what Narita just said. I think so. She is talking about the large organization, right? So I coming from like small and medium sized organization. I think the most important question that we have to ask now is this existing setup gonna bring you to the next level? I think you might insist that actually you are fine, whatever you have in the past, like 5-10 years is fine, but is that going to take you to the future? Because the landscape of workforce, the way people work has been totally changed, and it's going to be drastic change in the next like coming years. Is that existing setup relevant to that change? Because I think if not, you have to do something. And what I mean by doing something, I'm not talking about totally change the whole office. I think by like start from a minor tweaking, the office is kind of like a good starting point, but you know that where you're going, and then you start modifying that from from a small scale to a big scale. I think that's what I want to recommend.
Right. So just to add on, Karen, what Sombat and Narita are both saying are very, very true. I believe, although I believe that Singapore and Thailand are in definitely a different world right now from the Philippines. Very unfortunate for us that we are in this current situation right now. So if you ask me about hybrid office in the Philippines right now, my answer would be different just because of the current situation that we're facing. At the moment, what we tell our employees is that, well, we sell flexibility. Flexibility is a huge thing for us. Sell flexible workspace, flexible services. So we are living the same thing with our employees. We're in. No one else knows better your circumstances but you. So do you live with your senior parents? Is your wife pregnant? Isn't so it's up to you on what kind of setup works for you best, right? Are you able to work independently or do you need to be with someone? So we give that kind of flexibility to everyone here in the office right now, and we acknowledge and respect what their decisions may be at this point right now, especially. And to add to that is that there are definitely some industries as well here in the Philippines, like banks. Of course, they have to be on site manufacturing. They have to be in the factory building something. But there are industries as well that are able to thrive in a work from home setup, and I believe they will go to that kind of hybrid discussion when we are at a better place. But right now, I believe we are still at the peak of this pandemic. People are actually just going in the office if they absolutely need to be in the office at the moment. But I believe, right, definitely, I strongly believe in this hybrid kind of setup in the future for everyone.
Thanks so much, guys. It's really good to know that I think learning about um these kinds of setups gives us empowerment in terms of knowledge, right? In terms of, hey, I could actually discover what I need, and I can actually put it forward to our leaders. Hey, this is what I need, and this is what it's not a want, right? I just need to be clear. It's not a want, it's a need, because of the different circumstances that we're in. So for the next question, I think it's towards Tracy because of our current situation, just to continue the conversation. Um, so since the pandemic has greatly affected workplace culture and practices, what are the current requirements of clients when they are looking for an office? So based on the trends that you have just showed us, I know that you have showed some numbers, but what specific office trend are they going for? Do you see, or even if it's not now, like you said, because it's pandemic still,
Mm-mm.
what would be, you think would be the future, like right after we are able to go back?
Um, okay, so yeah, definitely the answer right now and in the future would be two different things. For the future, I agree with what Narita mentioned about the agile setup, definitely. You have to be able to respond to the exact needs of the clients. As I mentioned, flexibility earlier. There's really no hard, fast rule in all our offices. You would see everything has like its own design or setup, because just because we're ready to respond to whatever the needs of the clients are. We would build with our own internal standards, our own KMC standards, where there are collaboration areas, there are huge co-working areas, pantry areas, common areas. But at the end of the day, it depends on the industry that our clients really cater to. And actually, most of our clients are BPOs. So there are still very secure production areas that we build, wherein what we actually invest on a lot heavily is the IT infrastructure. So it's the practical side of things. We try just to make it prettier through our designers, but it's really it's the wires that go in these walls, these very expensive wires, these very fast internet, to respond to really the needs of our clients. So that's basically it for us, and hopefully we go back to that kind of trend in the future, because right now our main focus really is just a really safe and secure environment for our members that adheres to very strict health protocols at the moment.
Yeah. I'm just very curious to ask. Do you think Tracy is going to be like in a couple of months, even prior to the completion of the vaccination? Do you think people would, have the I should say confidence or courage to go back to the office?
I mean, we were, as a company, we were very optimistic about this year until March happened. As I told you, it was although a very slow increase in occupancy month per month, it was always going up. So we can see that the confidence of the people going back. I mean, they know that the pandemic is there, but they are getting more and more confident that they can function and survive and still thrive in this kind of environment as long as you know how to protect yourself, right? So that changed right now. Last month, just a few weeks ago, that changed drastically. So I would say, yeah, I don't know when. The numbers keep on, the dates and the numbers keep on changing in terms of the outlook, but we're very optimistic for 2022 because we foresee, I mean, other than the vaccines rolling in and herd immunity and all that happening with hopefully sooner than later, by 2022 we hope that people are they already know their routine, their how they're gonna work around these challenges that's facing us right now.
Right. Thank you. We go back to Narita. Cause Narita and Sombat, sorry, because it's very different. Um, our market is very different from yours, and of course, you have already started um doing or working with clients who are already adopting the hybrid office, right? So as they slowly or as organizations shift slowly towards this new way of working, do you think or can you see that it's effective? Can you already see that this way of working is effective in your markets?
Um, I think effective comes in many facets and perspectives. I think the post-pandemic awareness that has been the biggest focus and talking point has really been about it has unleashed a sense of empowerment, I would say, for the employees to have choice, where once upon a time they had no choice. I've been in Manila, it takes me 5 hours on the road to go for 2 meetings. And let's admit it, it's not the best use of our time. It's stressful, it's tiring, we don't get to spend enough time with our families. And perhaps the best thing that has come out from the pandemic is to question ourselves about the need to get into that traffic at peak period when we can get on it a minute before that particular meeting. I think I think it has completely opened up the eyes of looking at how we have so much more time. I think that's probably the starting point of the benefits of having that choice, right? I mean, I know what it's like because Karen tells me we got to get going. It's 2 hours before the next meeting. I'm like, 2 hours, really? But it's true when we get there 10 minutes before. And I don't think people want to go back to that, spend 6 hours a day. I heard one of my team spend 8 hours on because it was raining on a Friday in QC going home. And I think that's a bigger question for all of us. Now, if we put those 6 hours a day in work and had the right opportunity, as Tracy said, to go to the nearby neighborhood co-working to get the thing done, I think we would have an overall better quality of work life. And I think maybe that's the sort of light at the end of the tunnel. I think most individuals are looking towards. I don't think that they are fighting on not going back to the office, but I think they want to go back to the office for the right purpose and reasons. And I think companies really need to think about when you ask them to come back, what are they coming back to? Are you asking them to spend 6 hours a day commuting, to sit at a desk where it's noisy, it's not inspiring? I think that's a real conversation starter.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Thank you for referring back to Manila.
So from my point, right, I think to actually we did a few projects which is similar to the hybrid office even before the pandemic, like because it's kind of we don't know that the COVID will hit us, but during that time we know that this is going to be the future, and we already built and complete that kind of project before, and we know the result that it works in some certain point, but it might not work in some certain point as well. I think the thing is, from now on, there will be no kind of like a complete solution for all of us. There will be a learning process that we need to figure out from different perspectives, from top down, bottom up, and find a balance. And we still need to test that actually, because imagine that this is like new thing for everyone in the world. I mean, in the past, there is a pattern from West. They did this a few decades and it works, and we adopt that. But from now on, there is no Bible. Everything starts from scratch together. So you have to find that kind of the most suitable solution for your organization. Test, like Narita said, test a few pilot in your firms, and then find out the feedback very quickly, and then kind of tweak it along the way. It's going to be a long process for all of us, but very interesting.
Yes, definitely. Tracy, wanna add?
No, yeah, just really quick. Definitely agree with Sombat, wherein there's no one size fits all solution at the moment, and everyone is definitely learning as we go. But very, very interesting to hear from Sombat and Narita, because of course they're like 100 steps ahead of the Philippines at the moment, and it is definitely interesting as to what's happening there and how we can better prepare our teams for the future of office, right? And it seems like we are very much aligned as to our thoughts and our outlook, and I'm really glad to hear that from them.
Thank you. So I think again, it's for everyone. Noting the nearing end of our time, right? I just want to ask everybody, learning or like coming away from today's session. How do you think is the best way for us to communicate? I think not just to our clients, but in general, to the general public. What's the best way to sort of like explain to everyone that you have a choice? So some people, like I think here in the Philippines, correct me if I'm wrong, Tracy, but I feel like it's very difficult for us Filipinos to like voice our
Mm.
rights. Can we say that? Like our we have the right to choose and this and this and that. So but now, because we are forced to be able to work from home, right? Then our organizations are forced also to let us work from home. But that's unheard of here, because like leaders are always like watching everything that we do, right? We're not very empowered. I don't see that very often, unless you're in a multinational company, I suppose. So it's quite different, right? So I think that's my question. How do we, or how are we able to like communicate this? I think, is it from the leaders downwards? Is it from the employees upwards? How do we sort of like, these are the options now, and to be able to be better off and be at the best of our abilities, what we could do at work, you know um and it's also for our well-being and our welfare. What's the best way you think we can communicate this?
Well, so Karen, as you said, yeah, definitely our culture here in the Philippines is so much different from the other parts of the globe now. You are right that not all individuals here feel the empowerment, and I think that rests on the leaders to ensure that that kind of empowerment is felt by everyone in the organization. At least here in KMC, that's what we try to instill every time, and that starts with all our leaders, middle managers up. In order to drive that for the rest of the organization. But if you, as an individual, cannot voice it out yourself, I hope I still hope that in the future, like our government will be able to do so, just like the new DOLE requirements right now. So it gives very restrictive requirements, right? So it helps employees, to those that I guess that cannot say it themselves, to tell these corporations now, you are not allowed to place me in a very small office at the moment, right? So if hopefully if your leaders within the organization cannot guide you to that, hopefully, the government will be able to define it. And at the end of the day, as an individual, if your values are not aligned with your leadership team, then maybe it is, a question that you should ask. Because here in the Philippines, I see a rise of very mature multinational companies that are changing the way we work, and it's the kinds of companies that you would love to be part of, and it challenges the rest of the industries to to follow suit. So hopefully this kind of maturity trickles down, especially where, as what Narita says, this awareness that the pandemic brought about in each individual, and knowing what's more important to you in your life will will empower you more.
Thank you. Sombat or Narita?
I go first and let Narita end comment beautifully. So I think I'm going back talking about communication, right? I think you have to like have to understand that actually people do have their own concerns, and everyone has their own issue. And if you want to communicate this change to your, let's say I'm talking about if you are employee and then you want to ask your leader to change, and people afraid of change because they're afraid that they're going to bring the disadvantage to them. But if you communicate this change in the advantage way or benefit that they're gonna get through this change, I think they were open to hear that. But I think you have to have not just voice, but you have to prove that too. If you want to change, prove that if this change is gonna bring the benefit to the leaders, you will show that, and then fight for it. Yeah, that's all for me.
So I'll just kind of close very briefly. I think, like I said it earlier as well, change is inevitable, and the past where you sort of have the idea of I'll build it and they will come is most likely not going to happen in the future. I think that we have done very new strategies now, which was unheard of in the past. I have never designed or directed a design strategy by designing with 80 stakeholders in one room at the same time to agree on a stack. But that's how the future looks like, because when 80 people come together and they're having a common conversation with a common vision, that is the only way you will land on a common solution. It is when we have 80 conversations separately, we waste 18 months going around in circles and we forgot what we started at the very beginning. And so I think that bottom up, top down is going to have to happen in a room. It's everybody having a say and understanding when you make a certain decision for yourself, how it impacts others and how it disadvantages the greater community. And it's been proven, it drives ownership for the project, right? Because people then decide that that's what they needed, and then they have to be the people to actually use it, because That's not something we said you need. It's something you said you need. And so, you then own it. It's a bit like designing your house, right? Nobody wants somebody else to do it for them. You take ownership for your home. I think similarly, you have to take ownership for what your office is going to want to be.
Right, makes sense. So guys, we have more questions lined up, but I think we'll just have to post it on our social media. Send it to you guys first for questions. I mean, for your answers. But again, we would like to thank you all for joining us. It's a very, very, very interesting and eye-opening session today. We hope that the rest of the people who have joined us to this event have learned something. So I think for me, I think the most learning in a word for me is empowered, right? So I think it's being empowered. Whether you're a leader, you're a manager, or an employee, I think all of us would have that voice. I think that's the main difference now. And if we are able to communicate that, like Narita said, both ways, right? It's not just from the boss down, right? Now it's both ways. So I guess that's a huge difference alone from our old way of working to our new way of working. So thank you so much, Narita, Tracy, and Sombat, for accepting our invitation, and to everyone watching, thank you for joining us in Paperspace Philippines, Designing Workplace Welfare. So again, we mentioned that we are giving away slots for co-working spaces, Dragon's Nest, which is in Libis, Quezon City, and also in KMC. So it's very exciting. I think, of course, it will take a bit of time for when you're able to use it, when we are, safe and confident enough to go out of our houses. But please tune in. And also a little bit of interesting activity. We will be sending out a link for you to answer just a few questions, just to understand what do you think you need for yourself or for your team, for your organization. So it's a very well thought of, just a few questions, 4 or 5 questions, and it will lead something to hopefully is aligned to what you're thinking for your organization. Thank you so much, everyone, and see you soon. Bye.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
I'm terrified to speak.
I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody.
Now is the time to rethink the way we work and occupy spaces. Business owners are asking themselves new questions like, does my current office setup give me the flexibility I need to provide for the ever-changing needs of my business and employees? Can I offer my employees the ability to work near home? Can I significantly reduce operating costs by moving towards a distributed team model? As the leading flexible office solutions provider in the Philippines, KMC Solutions is able to provide convenient and adaptable options to enable distributed teams and provide work near home benefits to your team. The Kmc Passport is a multifunctional, flexible workspace solution that allows you and your employees to work in any of KMC's 24 locations. With 4 customizable packages tailor-fitted to the adaptable needs of your business: Kmc Passport, HQ Plus Hub, Virtual Office Plus Hub, HQ Plus Hub Plus Home, affectionately known as Triple H. Maybe you already have an office, but now want to give your employees the freedom to work closer to their home. The Kmc Passport will give your employees unrestricted access to freely utilize our hot desks across 24 co-working hubs located around Metro Manila, Cebu, Clark, and Iloilo. With the peace of mind of our lightning-fast, never-go-down network with up to 1.5 gigabits per second throughput. Are you still utilizing your current office space at full capacity? If not, perhaps it's time to move your core operations to one of our fully serviced, move-in ready, flexible private offices and pair it with one of our Kmc Passports. With our HQ Plus Hub option, you get the best of both worlds: a fully managed, secure private office, plus access to KMC's vast network of co-working spaces across the country. Instantly set up your HQ while giving your workforce the power to choose where to work. Or maybe you're looking to go fully remote, but still need an address for business registration. The Virtual Office Plus Hub option is perfect for when you don't need an HQ. With our suite of virtual office services, you can make use of our prestigious KMC business addresses and have us handle your business registration for you with the added bonus of a Kmc Passport that gives them access to our co-working spaces when they need it. Then again, why not have it all with Triple H, HQ Plus Hub Plus Home, our all-in-one blended model that can do it all. HQ, for fully furnished private office spaces for your main base of operations. Hub, for utilizing KMC's Passport to get to the co-working hub closest to you. And finally, Home, delivering you the ideal workspace setup coupled with business-grade internet right at your employee's home. There's a more efficient way to occupy spaces. Give you and your employees true flexibility and ensure productivity with no downtime with the new Kmc Passport. Reach out to us for a free consultation to learn how you can flexibly work with our Passport solutions.